Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. I hope you all got some lunch. I want to thank, where did we get that from?
Rock and Brew.
Rock and Brew. So, hope you enjoyed that. A couple quick introductions I want to make before I get started. Some people you already know, but very instrumental in putting together this presentation are two of our sales assistants, Allie and Nick, back there. My executive assistant, Carol. And we also have here in the kibitzing area our Senior Vice President of Sales, Hope Romero.
Hi, everyone.
General Sales Manager, John White. And our, what are we calling you now? Senior Vice President of Programming Operations, or Tony Monero. If you didn't hear, we just went through corporately a reorganization and how they did regions and everything, and I got my third title in a year. I am now area president. Area president, okay. Job's the same, nothing else has changed. I got a different boss, but that's okay. So thank you for coming. On your way out, I would like you to remember to get your booklet, your thumb drive that has this presentation on it. Well, mostly, because I just made some last minute changes, but most of it. And then I have a special, because I want all of you to be my Valentine. So if you would, we have this for you as well. And I mean all of you, even you, Kev.
Wow.
Yeah. So let's get into it. When I started to do this, this time around, I said, not much happened in the fall book. I was wrong. As I dug into it deeper and deeper, there's a lot of things. And you know how we always talk about, well, this station lost this audience or this station gained this audience. Did they do anything to warrant that? And in many cases they did. So we'll point that out and what that means for the fall book and what it means, what we look for as we move forward. And we're videotaping this upon one of our AE suggestions because a client couldn't make it, and it will be up on YouTube. So I figure I can send it to my sisters back east, and they can use it to drop off to sleep at night. But here's what's happened since the last time we all got together. In September, KKRG, Yo 1013, moved to 1051, so they're now Yo 1051. We'll see what happened there. They kind of flipped with Hefe, who's now at 1013. Those two different towers, 1051 is in the Jemez Mountains up there where KISS and EDGE and KRZY-FM are. And they're up there pretty high at 100,000 watts and cover Albuquerque pretty well, a little soft in the South Valley, but cover a lot of northern New Mexico as well. 1013 is out on 9 Mile Hill where 95.1 is and really has great South Valley coverage. So we'll see what kind of impact that had on the fall book. In November, KISS morning talent Dana Cortez moved to San Antonio, and she's voice tracking middays for KISS back here. She's on the mornings on a station in San Antonio as well. So just a couple days later in November, Gina Lee Fuentes moves from Yo to KISS mornings. In December, KAGM let go of most of their air staff, including Double J and the others, and that was after the book ended. So what we're going to see is numbers for that talent group that was on KAGM at the time. And then at the end of December, they flipped from Power 106 to Wild 106. This is the third time we've had Wild 106 in the market. January 12th, Dex returns to morning radio on non-commercial KLYT. And in January, John Jay and Rich came back to the market, and they're on Z106. They previously had been on KLQT. So those are the changes that happen in the marketplace, and we'll address those as we get further on in the presentation. From a demographic standpoint, what happened in the marketplace is that the population actually, 12 plus, went up 3,700. 1,600 of that was Hispanic. So it's really not much of a change. All the weighting stayed the same as it was in the spring book. The fall book is typically when Nielsen will go in and adjust populations based on new estimates that they come up with. So They only raised it by 3,700, which doesn't mean much. I know, this is an iChart. Actually, I get this question all the time, especially from people outside the market about the Hispanic population and Hispanic radio stations and what should I be buying. So this is a ranker. If you look, and I promise this is the only time I'll use the pointer, because I get criticized by that. But if you look at this column, that's the rank by Hispanic cume. And you can see to get to the first Spanish language station is Jefe at number 6. So it shows that the Hispanic cume is listening to non-Spanish language radio a lot. And people back east say, well, I gotta have Spanish language radio. Well, yeah, yes and no. And this is also often revealing to them at times, because they'll have some corporate clients sitting in New York going, I gotta be on Spanish language radio in Albuquerque because it's all Spanish language. Well, it's not. This is in your book as well. This is the household incomes for the market and where they're better than the average. Where they're shaded in, it means that they're better than the average for the market. And that's by radio station. This is a cluster comparison of the 4 major clusters in the marketplace. The far right column is year over year. This is all 2554 ratings. And the second column from the right is booked over last book. So you can see as a total cluster what happened as they went up or down versus in 2554 demo. So that also is in your book. So let's get started on the radio stations. Big 98.5, seen a little deterioration in their cume. Big Spring, big TSL in summer. I don't know where that came from, because they bounced back to their normal TSL and lost some more cume. Their big losses came 25 to 44. Their cume went from 13.3 to 9,700, and their TSL went down by 6 minutes. That's typically not real, so what we need to watch is watch that for the winter book and see if that TSL comes back. They're really a 35 to 64-year-old radio station, and when you think of the music they play, it's really, God, there's nobody in here in my age demo, but it's really the stuff that I grew up with. I went to high school and early college with. And I'm 66, so I fall kind of in that. Well, I don't even fall in that 35-64 anymore, do I? I'm 65 plus demo. Wow. But they're number 4 full week 35-64, and they're number 1 in AM drive 35-64, and that's Chaz and Bobby Box. Number 2 35 plus full week. They're a little more female than male, 52% Hispanic, and their median age is 55. KABQ AM, I say this every time. Liberal talkers are hard to find. We are really, really hoping for a Republican president. Now, everybody has a reason that they want to see a Republican in the White House. My reason is so we can grow this radio station. So those guys have something to talk about, And it's really not a 25, 54-year-old radio station. It's really 64% of the cume is 55 plus. We are in an election year, and typically in an election year, the news talkers who are either far left or far right will bode very well with it. So we hope to see this grow as we move through the election cycle. And one of the problems we have in this state is that by the time our primary comes around in June, it's over. It's decided, but much to our dismay, we asked our legislators last year to move the primary from June to Super Tuesday as broadcasters, very selfishly, so they spend more money in the state. And let's see, that would be more money in the state, more gross receipts tax, more income for salespeople and TV and radio stations, and more revenue in the state. Bad idea. They didn't pass anything last year, so that didn't go anywhere. But so we hope to see this grow as the election cycle continues. 104.7 KBQ FM. I lied, Rudy. Rudy asked me about this when he walked in. Actually, the cume went up. TSL went down a lot. But this, again, is not necessarily a 2554 radio station. 55% of the cume is 45 to 74. A demo, I'm in. Okay? Median age is 50, it's 60% female, 43% Hispanic. What we need to watch on this is watch the TSL. If the TSL comes back, the 2554 rank will come up, because that cume is kind of where it lives in 15,000. Okay, here's one of the changes that took place after the book. In December, they dismissed Double J and Johnny V and others from Power 106, and then about a week later, rebranded it as Wild 106. Now, if we take a look at this and say, well, why would you do something like that? If you look at spring to summer, both 2554 and 18 to 34, and you're the program director or the general manager of that radio station, you're going to say, huh? I've lost half my audience. And I've lost half my audience in my wheelhouse, 18 to 34. Oh my goodness. So before the fall book comes out, you're faced with some decisions. You know, I've got some contracts coming due on major talent. Well, what do I do? Well, they made the decision not to renew the talent and to go a different direction. And as happens anytime you change a format before a book comes out, it all bounced back, almost back to spring levels. So their dip in summer was women 18 to 34. They rebound into the fall. You look at those shares of women, 39, 27, 48. The cume, 19.1, 8,300, 17.2. So that loss was, one of those anomalies you see in Nielsen. Where did all the 18 to 34-year-old women go? Well, they just took a break, really? I don't know. This is the youngest station in the market with median age at 24. There's 75% of them are under 35, and they're 67% Hispanic. So what we need to watch here is this rebranding going to hang on to that 18 to 34-year-old audience. What they are doing on their website right now is recruiting on-air talent. And we'll see what direction that goes in. So this is something to watch in the winter book, because it'll be, all of this is their old staff and the old Power 106. Area 1029, which is KARS AM, is the terrestrial station. 1029 is a translator that they're on. And they were alternative rock, and prior to the fall book, they switched to active rock. So active rock tends to be a little older demo than alternative, and tends to be more male skewed. So if we look at 18 to 34, they lost cume, but we look at 2554 and they gained cume. And their gains came 2554 men. What's the active rock demo? 2554 men. Here's one of those cause and effect things. They did something to make a change. Did the effect, did it work? Yeah, it worked. Let's see if they hang on to that. That's the question to look at in the winter book. Do they hang on to that 2554 male cume and increase their TSL a little bit because it dropped? And they're probably, next time we get together, I probably won't even show 18 to 34 for this station. Let's look at 2554. Big I 1079, we'll talk about the country battle, because it's still going on, and right now, Big I's winning by that much, barely. Full week, Big I had a dip in the summer, bounced back a little bit in the fall, but when you look at that statistically, that's pretty consistent, the 2554 cume. TSL at 545 is pretty strong. Bobby Bones is ranked number 3 in mornings, which is real solid for that. 50%, almost 50% of our cume is 25 to 49 adults, which is really where current country music is today. It's young and it's female. The station is now number 4, 18 to 34 women. It was number 3 last spring, so a little slippage there. Median age is 36, 57% female. If you're a country listener, you notice that more and more that the new artists coming out are have a female appeal. They're young, good-looking guys. And so country is skewing more female right now. If you look at mornings and that's the Bobby Bones show, 2554, growth year over year is good. 3-hour TSL in morning drive is pretty solid. And you'll see other examples of that as we go through here, where people who have stations that have 3 hours or more of TSL, they do pretty well. So what we need to look here to drive the station is to keep that TSL at 3 hours and grow the CUM a little bit. KBQI-HD2, that's classic country on the translator 98.1. Really is a 35-64 radio station where middays is their best day part. Their CUM slipped in summer, is coming back in fall. TSL is coming back. That 730 TSL was probably a little bit high for that format, so it slipped back to 530. Again, a little heavier female, even though this isn't playing current country. 70% are over 50 of the audience. Median age is 59. Back in country still, Nash Icon, which is 96.3. And this is where we're starting to see some confusion. I even had a discussion the other day with a client who was like, well, which one am I listening to? Nash 92.3 or Nash Icon 96.3? So, and when we look at some of the CUM movement between the two in the country field, there might be some confusion here. But if you look at 2554, the spring was a big bump for them. And one of the things they did for the spring book is they added Tony Lynn, voice tracking from New York in the afternoons. And then the station has slipped a little bit. People were trying it out. The CUM loss from spring is in PM drive from 19.4 to 12, and the TSL stayed flat. Unlike the other country stations, this one skews a little bit more male, 43 median age and 31% Hispanic. Z106, they added John J. and Rich. You might have remembered them when they were on Hot for a little while, Hot 95.1. They're a syndicated morning show out of Phoenix, actually owned by our company, but syndicated through Premier. And they just picked this up. You just gave me a look because they're not syndicated through Premier. They have their own syndication company.
Oh, no, they're done through Premier. They're Premier. I was just giving you a look because you look good. But now you caught me. So.
DLW, they the big CUM last fall, they lost some of it, but it's coming back in this fall. TSL is pretty solid at 315. They're an 18 to 34 station. They're number 18, 2554. 61% Hispanic. Their CUM losses in the summer were 18 to 34 and AM drive, which was a 2-year low, but they returned for fall. So what we need to watch is the women 18 to 34 in this station, and if they can hang on to them and grow them, because that's where this station really lives. Their midday CUM was 19.2, which is the highest ever. So that's solid for them. Their 53% of their CUM is 12 to 44 females. Median age is 26. Ed FM, this is a pretty solid story for a solid format that just keeps delivering right in the mid-40s. Fall book was obviously low from a CUM of last year. This year, it's one of their highest CUMs in a year. The TSL at 530 is very typical for this type of format. I remember years ago, it was a rage to have the Jack format, and even they called this Jack for a week until they got sued by somebody. And so they renamed it Ed. They're 54% male. 87% of their gain year over year is 25 to 54-year-old males. So that's what we'll watch as we get the winter book. Do they hang on to that CUM gain, 25 to 54 men? And this station solidly is a top 5, 6, 25, 54 radio station, book in, book out. KHFM, great classical station. I put up their 35 plus because that's what they are. They're actually more than that. They're really 55 plus, 71%. They're one of the top ranked classical stations in America, even though they've switched frequencies a couple times. 71% of the listeners 55 plus. Someone said to me the other day, I was meeting with a client, he said, well, KHFM did really well with women 35 to 44. Yeah, they did. But that comes and goes. And we've seen that. It really is a 55 plus radio station, but an excellent classical station. And when you run the demographics, the psychographics on this, income's high, education's high, all that stuff. So it's a real solid, great classical station. Coyote at 102.5, 2554, they dipped in the summer a little bit. They held on to their TSL but lost Cume, but they gained all that back. That winter 55.3 is probably high for them because you see they're all in the mid-40s otherwise. They're more male than female. Their Cume loss was women 25.54 in spring and summer, but they rebounded with those women in the fall. So we need to watch that, see if they can hang on to those women, 25.54, to maintain where they are right there. Morning drive is something that we look at with this radio station because of a very active, in-your-face morning show. Had an unusually low summer, bounced back to 22.7, but their TSL, and here's a case of where they had 3 hours listening, but their Cume was down, and so that's helped hold their average quarter hour. So even though they gained Cume, because their TSL was so low at 145, their quarter hour went lower than the summer book. So what this station needs to do in the morning is get that TSL up, and their quarter hour will follow. This is one of the changes we talked about at the beginning. Hefe was on 105.1, the big blowtorch on top of Peralta Ridge in the Jemez Mountains. They switched it to 101.3. And by the way, when you switch frequencies, Nielsen follows the call letters. So all these numbers fall on are really Hefe's numbers, but when it was on 105.1. So I'm assuming the strategy was, let's get a signal better to cover the South Valley where there's a heavier Hispanic concentration. Well, look what happened. Cume was the highest ever. TSL stayed solid. I mean, 7's kind of high in summer. So what we need to see and follow for this station, since they moved to the new frequency, are they going to hang on to that Cume and to that good TSL? Because they're obviously in a position to to cover where their listenership is. Their big gains came in female Cume, AM drive, and middays. They're a little more female than male, median age 33 and 88.6% Hispanic. I know some people have in their mind, wait a second, only 88% Hispanic? It's a Spanish language radio station? That question came up in our sales meeting the other day when I was doing a dry run of this thing. And it's a good question because that says it's just a little over 10% that are non-Hispanic. Well, the question asked by Nielsen when they call you up to see if you want to keep track of your radio listening for the week is, what's the language that you spoke? What language do you speak at home? I think that's grammatically correct. And it's Spanish, and so you could have in that household somebody in that household who's over 12 who, yeah, they all speak Spanish at home, but who is not Spanish, is Anglo, maybe the wife or the husband. So when they fill out the diary, and at the back of the diary it asks for your ethnicity, you put in there Caucasian or non-Hispanic. And so that's where that may come from. This is a high non-Hispanic number. Most of the other stations are in the 90s. KOBAM, Rudy, as we were discussing earlier. It's still number one average quarter hour share of 12 plus. But that Cume of 70,100 puts it at 9th in the marketplace. So we see the big blowtorch KOB AM in 12 plus, it's Cume going down. 2554, it had kind of a good run, fall, winter, spring, and then it's dipped down a little bit in the fall. A TSL of 1015 is out of whack, and even the 745 is a little high. Spring of 15 was their highest 2554 rank of number 4. They're now number 10, 2554. 61% of listening is 55 plus, median age is 60, but we're in an election year, and they do very well. Rush Limbaugh does tremendously well in an election year, and he's having a field day right now. with 28 Republican candidates, you know, and Hillary and Bernie. He just is having fun. And he will have fun through the election no matter who gets elected. So I suspect to see both 12 plus and 2554 grow in the winter, spring, summer, maybe a little bit in the fall, because by the time the election comes around, we're one phase into the fall book. But so look for them to bounce back a little bit here, but the deterioration that you see in Cume 12 plus is happening to big AMs all over the country. And it's something that I may have mentioned the last time, is that there's a big initiative in Washington and at the FCC to what do we do to save AM radio? Because Rudy said anybody under 35 has no idea what AM means, and probably even under 45. But it's happening all over the country. And the FCC is concerned enough that they're trying to come up with an initiative to save AM radio, because this is what's going on with it. You look, anywhere you go with a big blowtorch, KTAR in Phoenix is experienced the same thing. So, but an election year, they're all licking their chops. KOB-FM is the number 2 cuming station in the state with 106,500, which is a big number, big station. You look at 2554, spring was very, very good to them. Summer, not so much. They bounced back in the fall a little bit. Fall over fall is better, with the TSLs pretty close. They're 64% female. If you look at women 18 to 34, which is their wheelhouse, their cume loss, 18 to 24 women, was down 30% year over year. So that's where they need to gain back, is in 18-24 women to help their 18 to 34. And if they do that, they'll probably gain more 25 to 34. But these KOB-FM is all about the female audience. And that's where they live, is 18 to 34 females. Here we go. Yo was 1013, is now 1051. My speculation is they moved to that signal in the Jemez Mountains to cover more of northern New Mexico. And when you look at both 18 to 34 and 25 to 54, doesn't seem to be working yet. Those people haven't found it yet. When you're dealing with a younger demo, they'll usually find and chase that frequency down, but a little old demo won't go to that much trouble. You know, they'll hit the next thing on the dial on their favorite stations, and that's it. Their big losses came when in 25 to 54. Huge cume loss there. 55% male. What to watch here, really watch, is that 25 to 54 cume. Is it going to come back? Are people going to find it and start writing it down in their diaries? Because obviously when they switched, they went, where'd they go? I'll put the next button on my, I'll push the U on my Buick button, B-U-I-C-K. KISS FM, number 1 adults 18 to 34, sharing cume. Median age is 28. It's just, you know, this station's been around forever. It's a powerhouse, big cume. Actually, its cume is number 3 now in the state. But they're number 1 with 18 to 34 persons in morning drive, middays, PM drive, 75% Hispanic. 2554, even though they're a younger skewing station, they're real solid 2554. Look at that TSL. It's pretty solid all across the board. Their cume. The fall, they had a KISS in both TSL and cume, but they're really a high 40s, right around 50,000 cume, 2554 radio station, and just solid as can be. Even though they made some changes in mornings, really didn't impact it. Hot 95.1, last fall, in the middle of the fall book, it went from R&B to old school, and from the translator to 95.1, and that was its lowest cume at the time. As you can see, it's kind of hovering around 30,000. That 6-hour TSL is great. Love to keep that. Probably won't. That's high. Very female radio station. 52% of cume is females, 25 to 44. So it lives at that 25, 44 female. 72% Hispanic, median age is 35. KLVO, they added Pioline last year, and this is the morning drive cume is the biggest ever at 9,000 adults, 25 to 54. They had a good summer book with big TSL, big cume. They lost some TSL, lost some cume in the fall, so what we need to watch is how Pioline does in gaining more audience and driving that audience through the rest of the day, because that's why you do big morning shows. So they can drive. If your morning show is not doing well, you're probably not going to do well the rest of the day. So, and that's probably the strategy that the AGM did. Let's bring Pioline in and build a morning show so it can drive the rest of the day. Magic 99.5 probably had the best book of anybody, and we'll talk about where that is. If you take a look at the 2554 cume, it's the biggest in over a year. Big gains in women 25 to 44. They're number one with women 25-54. Haven't been that in a long time. 80% female. The Christmas music effect. That's what we'll take a look at. In phase 3 of the fall book, and the Magic even moved up when they launched their Christmas music, so they get a full phase 3 of Christmas music for the book. Now the strategy behind doing Christmas music is I get a big phase 3, so then Christmas comes and goes, and when you get in their car after Christmas, they're playing music. Wow, I haven't listened to the station in a while, maybe I should stick around. And maybe they stick around and give you a good first phase of the winter book. That's the thinking behind it. Now when you see something like that, when we see something like that, we say, someone's probably going to, because if you look at a year ago, we had Santa 100.9 was on the air, and they didn't feel the Christmas effect a year ago. So there'll probably be another all Christmas music station this fall.
Somebody might even already be planning that, Chuck, but I don't want to,
I have 2 priorities right now.
I don't want to.
3 priorities. I want to kiss my wife, kiss my grandchildren, and drink a lot of beer. This is, the strategy for Christmas music worked. You look at mornings, it worked there. It brought them back from a lower summer, not quite to their spring levels. A good solid 2:30 listening in mornings. The question here, can we hang on to the cume, and can we hang on to the TSL as we go into the winter book, and can we have this Christmas effect at least affect the first phase of our winter book? That's the strategy. K&KT, I put this up there because they show up and they typically will have either big sell for a book or a little one. This one they had a little one, 6,700, the lowest in a while. They're really not a 25, 54-year-old radio station. They're 50% female, half and half, but they're all over 50. 60% of their total cume is over 55, but this is a Christian station, and it's a special niche, and they do a good job. Sports Animal bounces around. They had a good winter book, and then down for spring and summer, back up for fall. TSL went down. TSL's low for a sports talk station at 345. At 915, that's way high. So they got to solidify as their TSL has been all over the board for the last 5 books. Their cume gains came with 55, 64 men. They also had a big gain with 25, 54 men in PM drive. So are they going to hang on to that? That's what they need to do to keep that 11-1 cume, or they'll probably drop down there again.
And are they the ones that do the isotopes?
Yes. The Oasis is a smooth jazz station. It's really not a 25-54 station. That format isn't. The median age is 60. 71% of cume is 55 plus. They had a very unusual summer book where their cume was way up, and 17 hours and 15 minutes TSL listening. While smooth jazz does get long TSL, that's a little high. Okay, it's a lot high. As it came back to earth with an 830, but this really is a 55 plus station. We had a smooth jazz station we had on the air for a while, and same thing. We were 55 plus, and ratings never got to where we needed it, so we changed it. And I was out playing golf, and I had two people come across the golf course and say, "What did you do to my smooth jazz station?" I said, "Well, what do you mean?" "Well, it's off the air." I said, "Well, yeah." I just, "Well, why'd you do that?" I said, "Because has Arbitron ever called you and asked you to keep track of your radio listening?" And the wife said, well, yeah, but I just hang up on them. I said, "That's why." And that's what's tough about smooth jazz is it's an upscale, better educated audience, and you want me to keep track of my listening for a week for $1? Not happening. It's a new dollar bill, though, that they send you. The peak, number one person is 2554. Bounced back from a low summer book. Number one cume in the state at 107,600. Number one adults, 2554 mornings. So if you're keeping track, it's Peak, 94 Rock, and Big I, 1, 2, 3, 2554 mornings. 53% of cume is women, 2554. Median age is 33. In the mornings, yeah, they do okay. They can't seem to get a 3-hour TSL. I don't know what it is. Maybe because they talk too much. Just saying. Obviously, very solid station, does well. It goes back and forth with 94 Rock as far as the morning show. The last 8 books, 7 out of the last 8 books, it's been Peak or 94 Rock is number one in mornings. And the one time it wasn't, it was KRST. So very solid station, does well. I mean, what do we look for here? It keeps the cume, maybe raises the TSL a bit, both in mornings and all week, and it'll stay number one. The other sports station, I remember talking here one time about the 20,000 cume, how it was the biggest cume it had ever had. Well, it repeated it in spring and then dropped it in fall and came back almost the same levels. It's dropped in summer, came back in fall. AM Drive is their highest ranked, 2554. It's 15th. 92% cume is men. And when you listen to that station, that's not hard to figure out. Their growth came in men 45-54. Actually, they're third in men 45-54. And the median age is 49. Nash 92.3. KRST. And they're still branding themselves as Nash 92.3 KRST. Cume has kind of suffered a little bit over the last year, and that could be confusion with Nash, because what we're seeing is cume on Big I and Nash growing, and maybe it's coming from here with the confusion. Big losses in cume and PM Drive for summer and fall, and it looks like it's going to Nash and the Big I. That's when we look at it, we think that's where it's going. In mornings, they launched their syndicated morning show last fall. They kind of stuck in the low 20 range. They had a good bump in summer, went down, but they got to 3 hours of TSL. So that helped their quarter hour. So what you want to look for Nash, I want to say Crest, because why? I used to run it, and we've only been saying Crest for 30 years. To grow their 2554 cume and keep that TSL, as well as grow their cume in mornings and keep that TSL. So they want to hang on to their TSL because it's real solid. We'll see if they can. 63% of cume is female. As we said, country's more female now. KRZY FM, pretty solid TSL there, a little low in the spring. Highest cume in a while. Number one Spanish language stations, adults 25-54, it's number 6. 47% of their cume is men 35 to 44. And if you remember, a year ago we were doing this meeting and we were looking at this station, and does anybody remember what their cume was, 35 to 44 men at that time? Remember, it was 0? And we were going, what happened? You don't get a 0 for a whole book, especially at their core, which is 35, 44 men. And you can see that's where they've grown it. In fact, 35, 44 men, they're ranked number one full week. That's their core. They need to hang on to that. The problem is when you're talking about a cell that small, men 35, 44, statistically speaking, the standard deviation could be huge. because, are we getting into the right hands, men 35 to 44 to give us our vote? So that's what we need to watch, is do they hang on to that cell? Very solid. For a while there, we were talking about the Spanish language stations, about where is all the Spanish language listening going? And it's come back. And we're seeing these stations back in the top 10 where they haven't been in a while. So you have KRZY-FM and HEFA typically in the top 10 in the last couple books. KTPL is another AM station that is experiencing what AM stations are experiencing, is that young people don't go to the AM dial. This is business talk. They don't read the paper. They don't go to AM radio. They go to their iPhones. They get the business information. I mean, I don't even go to AM radio for business information, and I'm outside that demo. But the median age is 58. 55% of the CUME is over 55. It doesn't really play 25-54. The Edge, last year went through a pretty dramatic change in dropping Buck and Dex off the mornings on May 4th. A week later, they launched the local show with Baxter and Janae. What did we see happen? That was midway through the spring book of 15, so it didn't really impact that. But the summer lost CUME, TSL went up. Fall got the CUME back, and the CUME growth came in middays and PM drive. Mornings, summer came up quite a bit with a good TSL, lost both CUME and TSL in the fall, and you know what we say, you don't lose both, because you don't lose your favorite listeners. The people who listen the longest aren't the first people to leave. So we're looking here for TSL to come up or CUME to come up, one or the other or both. 75% of the CUME is 18 to 44 adults. Median age is 33. They're more male than female. 94 Rock, persons 25-54, real solid in the 50,000 CUME range. Spring was a little high, good solid TSL. Fall down a little bit, 25-54. CUME came down a bit. TSL came down a little bit with the CUME. The spike in spring and summer was 45-54 men. We look for them to come back because there's no reason for them to go away. They're number 2 with adults in morning drive, 68% male. In mornings, you can see that the fall and winter, they were in the low 20s. They bounced back into the 30s. There's that magical 3-hour time limit. There's 4 hours in the fall. That's what kept them in the hunt on an average quarter-hour basis. And we need to see that TSL in morning drive come up back to 3 hours, and they may be number 1 in mornings. Just saying.
It's a good problem to have when you have 1, 2, and 3 in the building.
And finally, KZR HD2 is broadcast on Translator 100.9. It's the beat. It's hip hop. It's been on the air for almost a year. So you see a full year of ratings there, and you see some good solid CUME growth, 25-54. It's really a younger skewing station at 55% female, 88% of the CUME is under 45, median age of 26, and it's the number 2 teen station on the weekends. So those of you who like the teen stuff, can tune in on the weekends. But that's real solid growth for a brand new station that's only been marketed through social media. But again, social media and young people go hand in hand. So with that, I thank you for coming, and I'll entertain any questions anybody might have. Okay, Carol, you ready to give something away?
I do. I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have any feeling for what's going to happen with Nielsen going forward with the ratings and diaries and measuring since TV has recently changed?
Well, Nielsen, good question. Nielsen has come out and asked broadcasters in New Mexico or Albuquerque specifically, do you want to grow the in-tab base? And the answer is no, because it just gets too expensive. To add a significant number to that in-tab, the in-tab goal, every book is 1,700, and this book they got to 1,787, I think it was. But to change it dramatically statistically, to make it more reliable, we'd have to double that. And none of us are willing to double our expense. You know, we're kind of waiting until they develop a PPM for smaller markets. That's kind of where we are. I mean, what they did to television here is just crazy, crazy. So if you don't know what they did to television, they stopped doing diaries here and are just dealing with, is it 50 meters? In-house meters? And they're extrapolating numbers across Salt Lake and Denver. I mean, it's just,
The
Majority of them are coming from the Denver market.
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, really? Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll get valuable prizes. What do you got, Carol? Tram passes. I've got 6 tram passes. I need 3 business cards.
I have to do it.
Yeah,
I get the
you
pressure.
have to do it because nobody trusts me.
All right.
Iris Cortez. Cariz, I'm sorry. I should know better, right?
I'm gonna try to get a non-business card, because apparently a lot of
No.
people didn't bring
Well,
business cards.
then the heck with that.
I didn't know.
Cindy. Finally. No, get another one. Laura.
Laura always wins.
So you can hang on to those and give it to visitors who come to visit you. Don't forget on your way out to get your book and your thumb drive and Be My Valentine. Thanks for coming, everybody. Appreciate it.